Hi, everyone. It's Amy Valdivia, and this is the Divorce Podcast, the baby of the Divorce Lending Association. How are you all today? Wanted to let you know that, boy, oh boy, we got a good one today. Mr. Patrick Kilbane is my guest, and he is partner, wealth advisor, and general counsel for Ullmann Wealth Partners. Before we get into this episode, let me tell you, this man, the perspective that he's going to bring to the table today is going to be completely different from anybody else we've had on this podcast. Talk about someone who knows what he's talking about when it comes to a divorce. We're talking attorney, we're talking financial advisor, we're talking author, we're talking somebody who knows what it's like to be in the trenches of a divorce, and he can give great guidance. I'm really excited to have him here today. Welcome, Mr. Patrick Kilbane. Yay!
Well, thank you so much, Amy. What an introduction. I was going to see if you moonlight as a PR spokesperson. That was awesome.
Well, thank you so very much. I'm very, very excited. I told you before the show, I am super excited for this episode because I don't get to spend time with individuals like you often. You have a very different perspective, and I want to make sure that we're sharing everything about you to our listeners. First and foremost, let's just jump right in. Tell them, who are you and how you got started? And you went from attorney to financial advisor. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, 10 years boots on the ground litigating high net worth divorce cases. And just in that experience, I, I helped high net worth individuals, uh, you know, did the best I could for them in the divorce process and then tried to connect them with resources, to get ready to get going in their new life. And, you know, I I saw people that I helped years down the road and just saw the dramatic changes for the positive in their life. And I felt like, gosh, if I played a small part in getting them to the right person, whether it be on the tax side, estate planning, to the correct wealth manager, to a mortgage broker. And I know, this is your area of expertise, and we'll get into this later, but the divorce situation with somebody who may have a lot of assets,
Right.
but no income, no recent income history presents challenges in your world. So I just felt like if I could take all of that experience and get out of the day-to-day practice of law and, into a situation where I could be in the best possible setup to help people launch their next chapter, that's what I really want to do.
Let me ask you, let's take a couple steps backward. Why did you become an attorney to begin with?
Oh, wow. Great question. I think, in my early years, I was very fascinated with the lawmaking process, Congress, politics. And my dad said to me at a very, I think I was 8 years old, he said, look, if you want to be a lawmaker, you've got to go to law school. Most of them are attorneys. So I said, okay, fine. So really from a young age, that was my singular focus. And how did I get into divorce law? Never on my radar. I didn't take a family law class in law school, even though they were offered. But the firm that I wanted to work at the time when I entered into the market, it was a very challenging market for new attorneys. And they said, look, we like you, but we don't have a position available. And then they called me up a couple days later and they said, we really liked your resume. We liked your experience. And we have a need to hire a new attorney in our family law department, which has exploded. And I covered up the phone and I thought, oh my God, who wants to be a divorce lawyer? Right. Like I thought I
Right.
wanted to do, corporate transactions or trust and estates. But the more I thought about it, I thought, this is really going to get me an opportunity to get into the courtroom quickly. I know that I was a litigator instead of a transactional attorney to sit in the office, work on deals. And the family law practice got me into the courtroom right away and got me good experience. And I like the issues, the emotions, and some of the issues like, the substance abuse and domestic violence and child custody issues. So really what I'm doing now, focusing on the money aspect of the divorce and really sort of being a Sherpa to guide my clients through the procedure and help them work with their attorney. Because Amy, as you know, some of these people going through this process, this is their first brush with the legal system. It's scary. They don't
Yeah.
know. So, having done it, and even in different jurisdictions, the laws are different, the procedure is different, but a lot of it is very similar.
And there was a moment where er, hard left turn, and you said, okay, law helps. However, financial advisement. That was your next step. What happened to get you there?
Yeah. So the person who is my now business partner, I represented him in his divorce in 2008, and obviously he was a wealth advisor, and I would routinely refer clients who were in need of a good wealth advisor to him and his firm at the time, and always got great feedback. So fast forward a few years later, he and I went to lunch at his invitation, and I got the update on his business, and he's just so excited about it and how things were going. And I jokingly said to him, well, if things are that great, why don't you hire me? And he said, I would, but you've got a successful law practice. You're not going to quit practicing law. And I said, you don't know that. Why don't you make me an offer? And so really the credit goes to Glenn, for having the foresight to see how my skills would be transferable to help his clients and future clients navigate this minefield. And it's been a blast. I love it. I think I've been able to add a lot of value. I do some expert witness work in some of the divorce cases where they're needed. And now instead of just representing somebody through the divorce in that limited time, I've got a lifetime, professional relationship with these clients and their children, and having a blast.
And you chose a specific area to focus on, not only divorce, but you chose to empower women. Share a little bit about why you chose that.
Yeah, and in my experience in the practice, and again, I don't want to generalize because it's not every case, but in a lot of the cases and in the majority of the cases, the women going through the divorce don't have the relationship with the wealth manager, the CPA, the property and casualty insurance broker, the mortgage broker, et cetera. And I've got these relationships, and knowing the person, helping them through the divorce case, I know which professionals I think would be a good fit and have
Right.
an excellent reputation. So I can make those introductions. And, I've worked with a lot of these professionals while I was a practicing attorney. I have mutual clients with them. Just trying to match up the best professional with my client for what they need. Some people need more, hands-on. Some people like to work with people who are paperless and who are better with technology. And knowing all those things and being able to make the really strong connections, I think is a nice value add for the person going through the divorce, to take those issues off their plate and, develop the trust with them and know that I've worked with these people. I know their reputations. I know how they work. I know how they charge, et cetera.
Make that connection with the appropriate parties for sure. It's the whole vetting process, right?
Correct.
However, you're taking on that role. At the same time, you're educating these individuals. Hence the fact now you're an author,
Yes.
moving forward confidently. Tell me about the book.
Yeah. So the book, really, I wanted, you kindly pointed out that I've got a unique set of experiences and perspectives. And I wanted to share that, going really deep on people going through the divorce. Unfortunately, that means I just don't have the capacity to work with everybody. But if I can write this book and get my message out to, people in different parts of the country, or people that may not necessarily, need all of the same services that I can provide to other people. If I can just reach one person and help them in that journey, that's what I was really looking to do. And another feature about the book, Amy, I wrote it as sort of like a workbook. Um, the appendix to the book has sample forms. It has a glossary. So if somebody's reading the book and they come across a legal term of art, um, and they can flip back to the book and say, "Oh yeah, this is what a financial affidavit or a petition for dissolution of marriage means." And, if they don't have somebody, they can pick up the phone and say, "Explain this to me again." So I really tried to make this book as sort of like a companion guide to somebody who's in the throes of the process.
That message, that message that you want to share with everyone.
Mhm.
You call it message, I call it advice. Someone, a woman,
Mhm. Mhm.
finds herself today facing the D word. And there's that moment, oh my gosh, now what? What do I do? What's that nugget of advice? What's the message you're going to give to that woman who's about to embark on this journey?
Sure. The first thing, the most important thing is you've got to get the best possible attorney for your situation. You're going to have friends, family, people who may have been through the process giving you all sorts of advice. I think the most beneficial work that I do is really helping if I am lucky enough to get somebody at the beginning of the process and I can help them find their attorney. For example, you know, maximizing the value of the business, getting the best possible alimony award, dividing a property, whatever your goal is. There are certain attorneys that I believe are, have stronger skill sets in certain areas. If child custody is your issue, there may be some attorneys that don't like numbers and don't like reading tax returns, et cetera. So if I can help somebody find the best attorney, somebody who's well respected by the legal community, has, significant experience. And, you know, I think, the different family courts in different cities and different counties and different states, all the
Right.
judges have their different local preferences. The laws are the same, the procedures are the same. However, things are done differently in every courtroom. And if I can match somebody up with somebody who has experience doing business in front of that judge in that county with the professionals in that area, that is the number one thing that I hope anybody who's listening to this facing these issues takes away from this conversation.
You said in the very beginning, if you're lucky enough, if you're fortunate to be able to work with that individual and talk to that individual in the very beginning, you would agree then, all of a sudden, this person is facing divorce. Reach
Mhm.
out to the existing professionals that they have. They may have the connection. It may not be first thought, oh, I'm going to talk to Patrick. He manages our money, but I'm going to talk to Patrick because maybe he has the referral for the attorney. But in fact, that's what she should do.
Right. Now, that's a great suggestion, Amy. So if I have clients, husband and wife, and they decide they're going to go through a divorce, maybe I have a stronger relationship with spouse A, but I want to see spouse B taken care of. I have a fiduciary relationship, and it's in this couple's best interest that they both have excellent attorneys. Because if, one has somebody that they really know the game and they know what they're doing, and the other person has somebody less experienced, that's going to introduce a whole nother level of complexity that this family does not need.
That's right. And what they have in someone like you just hit a couple new points that I want to bring up for the listeners. You said fiduciary,
Mhm, mhm.
and then I'm thinking financial neutral. Discuss those 2 points from your perspective because I want people to hear, especially if there's a woman listening to this podcast, hey, he even though he's tied to my husband as well because he's managed both of our finances, he has a fiduciary responsibility to me as well. I
Sure.
want to hear your perspective.
Excellent question. A fiduciary is somebody who has a legal obligation to do what's in your best interest. Okay. In the wealth management area, well, some wealth managers have not elected to be fiduciaries. They govern themselves on what's called the suitability standard. And suitability means, yeah, I can, I can recommend this mutual fund and it will help you accomplish your goals. But ultimately, my number one obligation is to my employer and my bottom line. A fiduciary standard is a higher legal standard where it is my responsibility to do what's in your best interest. So, again, couple, they've hired me. It's my job to get both of them to the people who will be best for them.
When someone reaches out to you,
Mhm.
works with you, it's obvious that they have a professional. It's obvious that they have somebody who has an education in multiple fields and can definitely take care of them. What is there's an additional question though that people often need answered when they want to work with someone. So now I'm going to ask something completely different than what we were prepared for. What's your why?
Yeah, my why is that, I mean, there are a lot of great professionals in all areas. And
Mhm.
there's some average ones and there's some that aren't so good. And I feel like divorce lawyers, by and large, my experience, I've had cases against a myriad of lawyers over my career. The super majority of them want what's best for their client. And the ones that are really, really good are also really, 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 really busy. And I liken the divorce process to a long division problem. And the lawyers, they're giving you the answer. They're punching into the equation of the calculator and they say, here you go, Amy, here's your answer. But you're going, wait a minute. I want you to show me your work and show me how you get there. And I want to know how you got from the problem to the solution. And some lawyers just don't have the capacity to show their work. So, and some people don't know how to work with a lawyer. They don't know how to use the lawyer. They don't know how often they should be contacting the lawyer. So I really think my why is to demystify the process, to educate while they're going on, to remove the anxiety, to help them, understand what the lawyer is asking for and why, understand the process. I write about this in my book. If you come to a shopping mall for the first time, it may be, one that's multiple stories, and you come to that kiosk that has the map that says you are here. And if you're at, really going to date myself, but if you're at a store like Dillard's, for example, and you want to get to Sears, you're going to see all of the other stores that you have to pass. So you know that you're on the right track to get to Sears. Um, and sometimes in the divorce process, I find that some of the people going through it, they don't have a plan. They
Right.
don't have I mean, the lawyer may have the plan and may not necessarily share it, but for somebody who is going through the process, may be distrustful of everybody going through the process. I think some people need that plan and they need to understand, okay, A happens and then B happens and then C, D, E, and F come
Right.
after A and B. And if I can help them, I'm not giving them legal advice. I'm helping them guide them through the process. And then if I get questions from my clients that I think, touches or is approaching legal advice, I would say, okay, Amy, that's a question for your lawyer. And I want you to ask your lawyer next time you meet with her these questions. Okay. And really help, create an agenda and help, so, you know, some clients, I mean, just simple things like if you call the law office and they say, no, I'm sorry, Amy's unavailable, she's in depositions. Okay, well, instead of you calling back, maybe you ask the legal assistant or the paralegal to schedule a time when the lawyer is first available. So you're not constantly calling the law office back, trying to get a hold of your lawyer. But if you know you have a scheduled time, I mean, things like that, or, you know, even just trying to figure out, what may be an emergency to you may not be an emergency to the lawyer or the court system. So ask your lawyer, what's an emergency? In a true emergency situation, how do I get a hold of you? How does your office, how do we work together? What are our expectations? And I feel like helping, get on the same page at the front with a strategy, with how we communicate, just makes the process so much easier, where you don't feel like you're battling your lawyer. You're
Right.
on the same team and rowing in the same direction.
So let me translate what I just heard. All the nuggets. I heard Sherpa, I heard attorney, I heard wealth advisor, and I heard the first question, how can I get a hold of you? If there's a divorcing homeowner and she's not connected to you yet, we know the importance of a team. You just talked about it, started to talk about the team. What are the questions that she or he should be asking about the various individuals that could become part of the divorce team? And how important is the divorce team, do you believe?
I mean, the divorce team is essential. And if I can just focus on the lender, for example, let's look at the marital home. How long have they been in there? Is one of them going to keep it? Is that person who's going to keep it going to then turn around and sell it? What are the capital gains tax implications of that? If you're in a jurisdiction where you have homestead protections, how is that going to work in the divorce situation? What part of the homestead exemption can be subject to the portability rules if those rules apply in your situation? What if you're the spouse who's giving up the home, but then you want to go and turn around? How do we draft a settlement to make sure that this person is able to get a home loan if
Mhm.
it's favorable? Do we have assets to borrow against if traditional financing isn't available? So just in 30 seconds, I rattled off probably 10 to 15 issues on just the lending side. So I think, at the very beginning, I can help the client spot those issues and say, okay, let's make sure that we've got Amy as part of our team. She's going to not give you legal advice, but help you and your lawyer think about, these different issues. If you take settlement option A, where you keep the house, let's make sure we consider these three things. If you're going to sell the house, do you want to sell it as a married couple? Do you want to sell it as an individual? Why or why not? What are some things that we can do to increase the value of the home? What about increasing the cost basis from improvements that we've made on the home? Did we own the home pre-1984? Does it have different capital gains tax treatment than a home acquired post-1984? So, I mean, you can see right there, we can have a whole week-long podcast about the various issues. And, the lawyer is the general practitioner. They they don't know all of these certain issues, but the best lawyers, the most experienced ones, are going to put a team together, and they're going to feel comfortable in knowing who to associate and be very comfortable knowing what questions to ask and being saying, I don't know the answer to that, but do you know who knows? Amy does. And we need to have her on our team.
Is it hard for you being
No.
considering you're an attorney, but you're the wealth advisor? Is it difficult when you think, wait a minute, why is the attorney doing it this way or what have you? Do you question or do you just roll
No,
with it?
Amy, if I wanted to continue to be an advocate, I mean, being the lawyer, I would. And I always say I don't want to be the armchair quarterback. I know
Right?
my lane. And candidly, when I was practicing law, I worked with some experts who weren't lawyers and thought they were being helpful and were actually making my job more difficult because they may have had another case in front of another judge and somebody was willing to handle an issue a certain way. and they were telling my client that this is the way it should be done. And that was an impossible outcome in this particular case, for example. So, um, I know my role. And if I see that a lawyer, if I think something isn't appropriate or there's a different way to look at things, I will take the lawyer aside and call them and say, did you do this? Or did you think about this? Am I missing something? Um, and I want to be helpful to the team. I
Right.
don't want to be the one, being the backseat driver or the armchair quarterback. My client has elected to put their trust in this lawyer. If I've had the chance, I've hopefully steered the client to that
Right.
lawyer for a different reason. And, I'm in a position where I don't, keep up with all of the new case law updates the way that the lawyer does. And I'm not in the courtroom every day like the lawyer is. So I know my limitations in this capacity and I know what my role is. So no, it's not hard. I actually think I'm being more helpful by staying in my lane.
That's a beautiful thing. We talked about that before. Stay in your lane, bro. Stay in your lane. You know, you hear that comment, but it's true. It's we need to know
Mhm.
where we are positioned on the team. And when you have multiple teammates, sometimes maybe they might question each other. However, it should be done professionally. And it's about working together. It's not about posturing either.
Yeah, there's no pride in authorship here. If you and I are on the team, I mean, look, we see it with the United States Supreme Court. A lot
Right.
of the most complex issues were decided one way at the trial level, another way on the appellate level, and then they go up to the Supreme Court. And out of 9 justices, in some cases, you have 5 think the outcome should be one way, and 4 think the outcome should be one way. So nobody's got a monopoly on the right answer. But if we can work together and get the subject matter experts from each one of the pressing areas and help our client make the right decision and get the right outcome and save the client money in, a very complex tax situation, that's the goal, not who's right.
That's when you know you've done your job correctly, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let me ask you, what's that one case that you carry with you all the time when you're working with somebody new?
And this is not, I mean, I'll answer the question specifically, but I feel like every case to some extent is more difficult and challenging because you've taken lessons away from all of them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And, did I consider this? Did I consider this? And you have more experience. But I think probably about 8 or 9 years ago, I got contacted by, it was actually a woman who had the more traditional breadwinner role. And, friends had told her to make, X, Y, and Z decisions in her case. And, I said, candidly, we'll just call her Jane. If you were my sister, this is who, in your case, I would, choose to represent me. And here's why. And these are the other professionals that I would use. And to my total amazement, she did everything that I told her to do. And again, I'm not patting myself on the back and saying that I have all the right answers. But in this particular case, I had been involved in fact patterns very similar, and she did exactly what I told her to do
Beautiful.
and rewarded herself by getting a very stellar settlement. She had top-notch professionals. She, would ask great questions, but followed professional advice. She is a master, a tremendous professional at what she does. If I was in, if I was swimming in her pool, I would be looking to her to follow her lead. Um, she was comfortable enough to trust me and agreed with, sort of the plan of action that we put in place and got a tremendous outcome as a result.
How gratifying, right? I mean, my goodness, she did it. Just
Well,
like,
and on the other hand, there's people who, don't take your advice and then tell you, gosh, Amy, I knew I should have listened to you. I wish I would have. And now I've told everybody else who was in my shoes, you've got to listen to Amy. I should have. I didn't. And I regret it. And, I don't hold that against people because, they're going through an emotional time and their judgment is clouded by all of these emotional issues. But you and I have seen this movie start and finish 1,000 times. We have a pretty good idea of what the outcome is going to be. And as a fiduciary, it's my job to say, look, this is your goal. And here's what I think is the best way for you to get there.
listen to your advisors. And the beautiful thing is that you actually stand by your role, the fiduciary. That to me is the priceless nugget in this podcast, because people often reach out to us just dazed and confused. They have no idea, and they feel like there's nobody that truly, truly, truly has their back. Everybody just wants, their cash. How much are you going to pay me?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been working with the divorce issues now for, almost 20 years. And at this point, I mean, everybody needs an income to pay their bills and so on and so forth. But I didn't have to write a book. I don't have to be a guest on this podcast. Um, my mission now is getting the word out and trying to help as many people as I can, whether they can actually be client, whether we can actually work together or not. I mean, just if one or two people hear this podcast and they're able to execute a plan in their divorce case, our time together has been, you know, totally worth it.
That's amazing. Well said. Well, if someone wants your help, how can they find you? Where can they find you?
Sure. We've got a website. It's ullmanwealthpartners.com. Ullmann, when you spell it as two L's and two N's, people invariably forget an L or an N. My email address is prominently displayed on the website. Of course, my book is for sale on Amazon. We also have an audio book, a companion audio book. If somebody doesn't want to read it, if they'd rather listen to it. I don't get any money from the sale of the book. We donate the proceeds to a local domestic violence shelter in Northeast Florida. So the mission of the book is truly to evangelize, teach, educate, help demystify the process. I'm
And move
archive
forward confidently.
Move Forward Confidently is
Title.
the title of the book.
Yes,
I'm hopefully memorialized forever on YouTube with this podcast so people can replay the podcast. But, I truly want to help. And um, the divorce process it's challenging. It's no fun. Um, but, I think there's a right way and a dignified way to do it. And, getting out, getting in, getting out, and moving on with your life is so important in this process.
it is. I am just grateful for your time and what you have to offer, and the connections that you can help individuals make to have, unfortunately, the best divorce situation. To say it that way, it's just very odd to say it in that manner. But parting thoughts, what would you like to leave everybody with?
Yeah, I'd love for everybody who's going through this process, who has a family member going through this process, get them my book. Um, get them the audio book. The audio book is really inexpensive, but I would like to think it's a nutshell overview. And if they don't get a hold of the book, I think, like you said, any professional that they're close with has got to know somebody who knows somebody who can give a really personal, specific recommendation for a
Right.
divorce lawyer. not somebody who markets themselves to catering to only women or only men. Because I think you need to have somebody who candidly has served both genders
Right.
so they can understand what the issues on the other side, what the other side is thinking. And I think those two things will probably get you 90% of the way home.
And having a wealth advisor with an attorney perspective isn't all that bad after all as well. Well, thank you so very, very much for spending some time with me today. This was fantastic, and I hope that there are those listeners out there going,
Mhm.
huh, this is what I need to do, and this is how I need to do it. And by the way, you work with people nationwide on Zoom as well. True or false?
True, true. I'd love to. Have a couple cases going on right now in multiple jurisdictions.
Beautiful.
There's one in Illinois that comes to mind. I have one that I'm working actually in London, um, as we speak. So, obviously I'm not a member of any of the English bars, but through a network of friends who are members of the International Academy of Matrimonial Attorneys, I was able to help somebody find an attorney in London through the very process that we just described. And, like I said, in that one, not to get off track too much, but it's amazing learning the laws in a different country and how similar they are to the divorce laws in Florida. Obviously, some differences, but, Amy, I'm grateful to be a guest on your podcast. I hope I've been able to, help some of your audience. And I really want to thank you for all the great work that you do because I think people don't realize how many significant issues there are with real estate financing, and somebody going through a divorce, should have you high on the list of somebody that they want to include on your team.
Thank you for saying that. And on behalf of the Divorce Lending Association, we thank you for what you're doing. And we are grateful to partner with you as well.
Great. Well, let's do it again.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.